see if anybody can hear me. That's good. Oh, thank you. We got sound now. Thank you. Sorry about that. I have a faulty wire here. So let's kind of start that over. My name is Don DeRosa. And oops, I got my phone on now. That won't do either. So I appreciate the comments. That tells me that the comments are working. I appreciate that. Thank you, Valerie. And looks like Worldwide Rel. I'm not sure who that is, but welcome to the show. But anyways, my name is Don DeRosa. I apologize for the little glitch in the microphone. I keep meaning to get this wire fixed, but thank you for letting me know nonetheless. If you've just joined us, we just started this show, and it is the Expert Real Estate Coaching Show. We've got this. We're also going to be starting a podcast coming up soon. We're just getting some shows kind of in the funnel, if you will. So stay tuned for more information on that. That's where we interview some of the top experts around the country on what's happening in today's real estate and where they think it's going. So, which is, we may, in fact, I think what I'm going to do on this show is on Thursdays, I think I'm going to start doing interviews. So if you'd like to get some interviews, I'd love to see your comments to see if you'd like an interview style one of these days on the Tuesday or Thursday we do it. But I think that's where I've had lots of requests for interviews and talking about who is the movers and shakers of the world and getting them on and seeing how they're reacting or how they're changing their business model to the way the world economy is going. But tonight I want to talk specifically, we've talked in the past few weeks, and you can see, go to some of the other videos that we've talked about as creative financing, such as subject to, wraparound mortgages, owner finance, lease purchases, things like that I think are techniques that you need to kind of put in your toolbox, if you will. So if you're interested in that and you'd like to learn more, there's plenty of videos that we have out there right now. Plus, you can also go to htrei.com. And, if you find yourself in need of education, that's a great place to go. We've got lots of inexpensive education, but very, very informative information, right down to the nuts and bolts of it. So if you're interested in that, please go there and check that out. But tonight, I want to talk about another topic that I think is going to be very, very valuable, and we haven't really needed it up until this point. And when I say that, I'm going to kind of back up a little bit because some of you may not have been on the show before. By the way, if you are a Facebook user and you are coming from a group and you would like me to say hi to you, I would love to say hi, but I can't see your name because Facebook hides that when you're coming from a closed group. So if you could put your name and then the comment, that would help me out immensely. That way I knew who I'm talking to. But I can go back later in the feeds and answer you directly. But I'd love to know who's online talking now. There's several of you that said hello. So I'm not quite sure who you are. So I don't want to be rude. But I want to talk about what another element that I think is most important going forward. Prior to this, we haven't really had a need for that. We've been in what we call a seller's market, meaning low inventory, high demand for product, houses, right? And when that happens, sellers can pretty much name their price. That's why they call it a seller's market. Prices tend to go up pretty dramatically. And investors that are new at this tend to have an easier time maneuvering through the marketplace because they don't have to be a great savvy negotiator, right? And quite honestly, there's not a super amount of room for negotiation because it's such a hot market. Sellers can pretty much dictate what they get for that. That's why you have people overbidding on properties and people spending more money than I think they really should. Well, welcome, Jarrell. Jarrell Smith said, found your page on Facebook, Atlanta RIA. So I can put that information. Let me take this down and put this up there because I can actually add this. So welcome. I appreciate it. So Valerie also said hello, gave me a little. So thank you very much, Val. Alan said hello. Alan's watching, so I appreciate that. But let's talk about negotiations, because I think negotiations is probably going to be one of the biggest things that you can learn going forward. Now, negotiations has always been important, and in almost every show is just on Matt Marinoff's show today. So if you ever get a chance, Short Sales 101, I think, is his Facebook page. So if you get a chance, go check him out. He's got some great stuff. He also owns a company called Real Estate Recovery Group, and he does a lot of short sales. So if you if you're an agent and you have a need for a short sale, go check Matt out and his Real Estate Recovery Group. But he had me on his show today, and we were talking about, where he asked me the question, where do I think this is going? Because his market in New Jersey hasn't really changed much. And I would say the same here in Atlanta. Our market hasn't really changed much yet. And the operative word is yet, because, and I've said this in many other videos, I think right now everybody is holding their breath. You've got lots of people that are in shelter in place. And in Georgia, for example, we got out of shelter in place last Friday. So this Friday will be 1 week that we've kind of been out there, and nothing really exploded. The numbers are still they're starting to continue to tail up, right? We still have cases, so don't get me, I don't want to minimize that. But my point is, the whole purpose we went into shelter in place was to help the bell curve, right? Create so that we wouldn't have such a spike in our healthcare system. And I think we've done that. I think we've done say what you want, political wise or politics wise. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I think everybody can point fingers one way or the other. So I really don't want to get political, and I also wouldn't want to be in any one of those people's shoes making these types of decisions, whether it be our governor or president, anybody, right? Because that's a tough position to be in. But with that being said, Matt asked me a very interesting question. He says, where do you think we're going? Because I don't think it will be that bad. And I hope that he's right, and I hope that I'm wrong. But here's what I see. I see right now everybody holding their breath. And when I say holding their breath, I mean they're sheltered in place right now. They're not really spending any money. They're not really making any money. I mean, we're over 33 million people unemployed. So you cannot have that many people out of work and it not have some kind of repercussions on the economy. So I think what we're going to be faced with a decline in our marketplace as far as housing. And I think where you're going to see it probably rear its ugly head first is going to be in the retail commercial side first. And I hope I'm wrong, and I can be wrong, if the lenders, people lending money out there, continue the flow of money. If they get to the point where Wall Street gets scared or the banks get scared and they stop lending money, it's going to bring our entire economy to a screeching halt like it did in 2008. So the saving grace I think we have is we have to keep the money flowing while protecting those and supporting those that are out of work and that are affected by this. So I think that's going to be the trick to do this. So with that being said, I think we're going to have some issues with housing, and you're going to need to learn how to owner finance. You're going to need to learn how to take over property subject to. You're going to need to learn all that. But then there's also going to be those folks that truly could use cash and could buy and sell cash. When that happens, you as an investor need to learn how to be a good negotiator. And as I've mentioned just a few minutes ago, up to this point, you haven't had to be a great negotiator because we were in a seller's market. You could literally go offer the seller what they want and even go out to the marketplace and tack on your if you're a wholesaler, tack on your fee, and people would still pay it because inventory was low. Inventory was low. Lots of people tried to get into this business or were in this business and they wanted to buy. So they were willing to pay because the money was flowing. Everything was flowing. Everything was going great. So people were willing to pay more. In fact, you could buy a property today and pay more than you should have, but the economy was helping you in such a way that 6 months from now, the economy got so much better that it actually helped you get out of that hole you were in. Well, I think those days may be coming to an end. So what does that mean to you? That means you've got to be a better negotiator on the front end, because we all know you make your money when you buy, you realize it when you sell. So in this particular case, I think I put together some information for you, and I'm going to share that with you. We're going to go right here. Whoops. Would you agree? Are you coaching on subject to? So here's a question that was put out there. Let me put this down. Are you coaching on subject to or owner financing? Both. I do both. I've been doing owner financing and subject to, wraparound mortgages, creative financing for the better part of 20 some years, almost going on 23 years. So the answer to that question is yes. As a matter of fact, before the end of the show, I'm going to be doing a subject to event coming up on the 23rd, which is not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday. So we're going to be doing a whole day event on subject to and how to buy creatively using that technique. And I'll tell you more about that later. Let me get through this content first. But let's take a look at this statement. What we achieve, and I'll put myself down here in the corner. What we achieve in life is in direct proportion to how well we negotiate. Now, you've heard the term, you may have heard this term, they're a born salesman. This person is a born salesman. This person's a born negotiator. If you were in front of me and I had you raise your hand, almost every one of you would raise your hand. And the fact of the matter is, it couldn't be further from the truth. Nobody has that in their DNA. All of those things are a learned skill, and you are no different. Now, some people have a better time or an easier time grasping some of these concepts because of their personality, but that personality also has been a learned personality throughout, ever since they were little. So negotiation really starts when you're little. So, here's a book, like I said, Instant Negotiator. There's several books out there that I highly recommend. One is Herb Cohen's, I have it down here. Hang on. It is called Negotiate This. And then there's another one by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference, and he's an ex-hostage negotiator. And I don't get paid for any of this, by the way. These are great books. It's great information. And anything, to be honest with you, by the author of Roger Dawson, I highly recommend. But there's lots of people out there, lots of authors that can teach you negotiations. And at this point in your career, I think you need to get as much information on negotiating as possible. And I don't care whether it's buying a house, buying a car, buying a swing set. I don't care. I don't know what made me think of swing set, but it doesn't really matter. The art of negotiation, you need to learn, right? So before we start that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the real estate process. And we start with marketing, then we kind of transition. So think of it like a conveyor, right? You don't put the wheels on the car first if you're building a car, right? you put the chassis down. Then everything attaches to that, right? Same thing with real estate. You can't put the cart before the horse. So you got to do marketing first. You got to get people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in selling you. Then you got to qualify them and say, is this worth my time? And then once you do that and you go visit them, then you start the negotiation phase, right? That's when you sit down with someone and you talk to them and you try to create what we call a win-win scenario, right? That's purest negotiation in and of itself. And then you have paperwork, find a buyer, close, et cetera, et cetera. So it goes through the whole motion, right? So tonight I specifically want to talk about negotiating, right? Now, I did the same kind of presentation the other night at Atlanta REIA, which is their real estate organization here in Atlanta. I highly recommend you check it out, by the way. But we did this. I did the meeting before their general meeting, and I talked about negotiations. And one of the questions I asked was, without really thinking about it, if I were a psychiatrist and I held up an ink blot and they tell you, okay, what's the first thing that comes to mind? They really tell you that because they don't want you to think. They want to know what's on your subconscious, like what's there. So when I ask you this question, what do you think of when you hear the word negotiate? What is the first thing that pops in your mind? Now, if you're listening, please go and put that in the comments because I would like to know what is the first thing. It doesn't have to be anything even relevant of what we're talking about because most people have a very misconception of what the word negotiation means. For example, most people think of it some kind of conflict. We got to win, we got to lose. One person's a winner, one person's a loser. And then if you've had some education in that, then you may get in transition into it's got to be a win-win, So win-win means what? Win-win, how do you get a win-win? I mean, I've always been taught there's a winner, there's a loser. Okay, if you're not, you're first, you're last. In the Ricky Bobby sense, if you're not first, you're last, right? So, from a mentality standpoint, we've been kind of taught that way. But in negotiations, win-win means I walk away feeling good about it. They walk away feeling good about it. Whoever's in the negotiation walks away feeling okay with the transaction, meaning they're not upset and they didn't think they were taken advantage of. They all think they got a fair negotiation. So that is a win-win in my book. But also people think of, countries, Korea, North Korea, United States, China, Japan, all these negotiations going back and forth. Or in my world, where I came from, Teamsters, right? Negotiating, sitting across the table, thinking about all that stuff. And negotiating, pounding your fist, all kind of stuff. Haggling, that's right. Valerie says haggling. A lot of people think of that term when they say, when they think of negotiations, they think of bickering back and forth. And that really isn't the truth. The truth of the matter is, this is Webster's definition. Let me get rid of me. And Webster's definition of this is the mutual discussion and arrangement of the terms of a transaction or agreement. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't know what the hell. That does not sound like fun at all, right? Doc says compromise. Absolutely. Now that's a more educated, what I would call a more educated response to the word negotiate. That is someone that has some education behind them and compromise. When most people think of negotiation, like when I first thought of that, I didn't think of anything like that. I thought of Donald Trump, and because he has a book called The Art of the Deal, and that was the first thing that popped in my mind. And this was well before he became known for anything other than real estate. So my theory, or my my process is different than some of you. But let's talk about what negotiation really is. How many people have kids? How many people negotiate every day? Do your homework, go brush your teeth, get to bed on time, clean your room, take the trash out. Those are all things that people negotiate with. This little guy right here, he is a born negotiator. This is probably one of the best negotiators on the planet. He cries, we figure out what he wants. So he wants something, he cries. I use examples in my seminars, but about how people are taught early on in their life how to negotiate. You've got, I use the example of a little girl that went to the restaurant. And she was 3 years old, didn't get what she wants, so she screamed at the top of her lungs, right? Well, it was so uncomfortable for the parents, they went and they got her what she wanted. Okay, so that was her form of negotiation. Well, I can tell you from my perspective, right, wrong, or indifferent, my mother would have marched, if I just threw a fit like that, my mother personally would have marched my butt out of there, and my feet would have hit the ground every third step, because we just didn't do that. And that's what I was taught. You didn't act that way, especially in public, right? But different people create different things. The day of everybody gets a trophy, that has repercussions to it. I know everyone wants to be a feel-good environment, and I'm okay with that. But it does have repercussions that when if you give everybody a trophy, when they actually have real hardship in life, they're not fully prepared to handle that. They don't know how to negotiate through it. They don't know how to figure out how to go through that. So there are repercussions to that. How many people here, like I said, have a spouse that they go, okay, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? I don't care. Okay, well, let's go here. Nah, I don't really want to do that. Okay, well, where do you want to go? I don't really care. Okay, well, let's go here. Nah, I don't want to go there either. Those are all negotiations, right? People who get speeding tickets, men and women react differently to how they get out of those. Women tend to cry and it tends to work. Guys try to cry, doesn't work. So every scenario has a way of, there's different ways to negotiate. Okay, and as you learn negotiations, you're going to get familiar with things. Every negotiation has 3 variables in it, and I don't care what book you pick up. They're all going to have the same variables. They're going to have time, information, and power. Those 3 variables are in every element of negotiations. And I don't care what book you read, they're all going to give you the same variables. Okay, so here's my definition: the interaction between people to come to an agreement on an issue. So that is what I would call mine. So to be an expert negotiator, I think you need to learn what I call the following items. And I'm going to kind of go through this. I spent a little bit more time on this Monday night, but I'm going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. But to be an expert negotiator, you have to never assume anything. Okay, you cannot assume what your component wants. You can't assume, you have to ask. And I tell people all the time, in order to be in our field, we're creative real estate investors. I'm not just a real estate investor that goes and buys low, sells high. Anybody can do that if you can find the right deal. I solve people's problems. And this is what I teach my students to do, because in this world, that's where you're going to make money. You're going to make money. That's where all the money is made, by solving people's problems. So in order to do that, you can't assume anything. You have to ask. You have to ask what we call the 20 questions. You have to ask, why are you selling? What do you owe? How much is your payment? What's your interest rate? Now, if that's uncomfortable to you, then you may be in the wrong line of work, or you may need to work at it until you become comfortable with that. But by understanding what the problem is, only then can you offer a solution to that problem. Okay? So you never want to assume anything. The second reason is you want to be a great listener. Okay? Being a great listener. Notice I didn't say a good listener. I said a great listener. A great listener hears things when other people don't. Right? Now, if you talk to me on a daily basis, I'm probably an adequate listener, because I got so many things going on up here that I may be looking straight at you, but my mind is elsewhere, right? That's just how my mind works. I've always told people I think I have ADD because I can't focus on something long enough. But when I'm in front of my seller, when I'm talking to a seller, I am laser focused on listening to them, because as they say, the devil is in the details. So understanding how to be a great listener. So I'm going to go down through these pretty quick to kind of give you an idea. First, goes back to what your parents taught you when you were a kid. Look the person in your eye when you're speaking to them. Now, don't look past them. I can't tell you how many people I talk to and they look past me and I turn around and go, "What? Who are they looking at?" And there's nobody behind me, right? They, for whatever reason, they cannot look that person in the eye, whether it be, I don't know why. But if you want to build good rapport with someone, you have got to be able to look them in the eye. Okay. Number 2, don't interrupt someone. It's real easy when you're in this business. You kind of like to hear yourself talk. You kind of like to hear yourself talk and how great you are. Stop. Don't do that. Right? They don't care. There's a good reason why the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's because they want you to listen twice as much as what you talk, right? So take that as a hint. So don't interrupt someone. Let them finish. Then, if you have to write down whatever your question was, whatever your follow-up was, fine, do that. Focus on understanding. So when you are listening, don't be afraid to say, "So let me stop you right there. Let me make sure I understand this. If I give you this, or if you get this done," or in a case like I had a lady that needed $1,500 by Friday. "If I give you the $1,500 by Friday, you would sell me your house. Is that what I understand?" Get a clarification on that. And we'll talk about clarifying questions later, right? Number 4, determining the need at the moment. What is the need at the moment? Because let's face it, needs change. And people make decisions on emotion. They justify later on logic, right? So what is the emotional need at the moment? Because that's what's going to force them into making that decision. Now, and I got to tell you, it is rarely price. People who are truly motivated, foreclosure, death, probate, 2 payments, job loss, foreclosure, etc., bankruptcy, I can almost assure you 100% their problem is not, yes, their problem is money. They want as much as possible, but solving their problem a lot of times is more important than giving them money or giving them, they have a real problem. So if you can understand the problem, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's not. Example I just used where the lady needed $1,500. Well, my earnest money normally is $100 to somebody. Well, if I wasn't listening to this woman and I didn't really pick up on the fact that she needed $1,500 by Friday. Now, I'm not going to close this thing by Friday, meaning that, if it's Tuesday, I could, but it would be very difficult. So if I'm not listening to her, I'm going, okay, I'll give you $100 earnest money, and then I'll give you $30,000 when we close. Well, the reason she needed the $1,500 was because she needed that to put down on the apartment that was right next door to her daughter in Florida, that if she didn't have it by Friday, they were giving away the apartment. She would have to move somewhere else, not even close to her daughter. It was a perfect storm for her, perfect scenario. So that was the most important thing. That is what the need at the moment was. Understand that. Number 5, check your emotions. Don't get emotional. When you get into negotiations with someone, leave your emotion at the door. Take your head off, leave it. When I was a district manager for Airborne Express, everything was a negotiation. I had Teamsters climbing up my rear end constantly, right? And everything was a negotiation. So when I got to the office every day, I would literally take my head off and put a different head on, and I would check my emotions at the door, because emotions make you make decisions hastily, right? Or erroneously. So don't do that. You always have to think with a clear head. And one of the reasons why you can think with a clear head is because of the 3 variables: time, information, and power. If you have more time than your opponent or your counterpart, that puts you in an advantage. Okay, foreclosure, for example. if I'm meeting with someone that's in foreclosure, okay, well, who has the time advantage, me or that person? If they're 3 weeks from foreclosure and they don't have another offer and I'm their offer, can I walk and it not affect me? Yes, I can. Can I walk and it affect them potentially? Yes, absolutely. So they're in a weaker position. So time becomes a factor. Suspend your judgment. Don't cast judgment on anybody when you're negotiating with them just because they are in foreclosure, just because their finances may be a shambles. You have no idea why. And what I tell people all the time, bad things happen to good people every single day of the year, every single day. And just because something bad happened doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that they mismanaged anything. It just could have been the circumstance. And I tell people this, every single one of us, myself included, could be right where they are if the hardship is big enough. So don't cast judgment on anybody. Be empathetic. Your job is to build rapport with someone. Okay? Don't trust your memory is the next one. Make sure you write it down. I always use this phrase. Confucius says the palest ink is the best memory, is better than the best memory, right? And what I mean by that is write it down. If you write it down, you never forget it. If you don't write it down, you run the risk of forgetting it, no matter how good your memory is, right? You could have the best memory in the world, but there are times when people forget stuff. But not if you write it down. So write it down. Nowadays in the electronic age, it doesn't even take that much space. You write it down and you delete it later. Right? Same thing with photographs. Take tons of photographs. Back in the day when I first started coming out, you had to take a 9mm, or not, that's a gun, an 8mm camera and get them developed. And you had to go to Walmart or whatever and leaf through these photographs. It used to take you days, and that sucked. Then they had the digital camera. That's me dating myself, by the way. Then you had a digital camera, and now we have them all on our phones, so there's no reason, right? So don't trust your memory. Then it brings me to my next one, number 8, sum up at intervals. From time to time, remember, repetitiveness helps people. Okay, it helps them. There's a thing called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, that we'll also introduce to you later. And NLP, a lot of times, you've got 2 types. You've got the self-hypnosis type, which is I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and doggone it, people like me type thing, where you put the glasses on, you go into a state, and people, put these headsets on, and they tell you how great you are, and you're going to quit smoking, and you're going to, quit eating, and you're going to do all these things. That's self-hypnosis, right? And that stuff works. But then you have what they call mirroring and modeling type of NLP, where you can persuade somebody just by the rhythm of your voice, how you talk to them, what you say to them, what they call mirror them, okay? And you can do that by repeating certain phrases. Now, I'm not getting into that, but by summing up at intervals and saying, so let me understand. If I get you, remember, you've already mentioned this to her before, but if I can get you $1,500 by Friday. So what you need is $1,500, right? $1,500, right? $1,500, right? So at the end, here's $1,500. You've just now programmed that person that if that's what I give you, this is where we're going to go. Right? Does that make sense to you? I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear comments or see comments of any of this. If anyone's done NLP and is familiar with that, because it is a very powerful technique. Number 9, ask questions for clarification. If you don't understand some, say, well, okay, so let me understand. Let me clarify this. You need not 500, not 1,000, but you need 1,500 by this Friday. Now, could I mail it directly to the place? Because I don't usually give $1,500 to my seller, especially directly to them. I've been there, done that, and I've been taken for a ride for that $1,500 and basically went to a $1,500 seminar. So what I might say is, let me clarify this. You need $1,500. You don't specifically need it. The place that you're moving into needs it. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so if I send them $1,500, okay, in exchange, you're going to convey the deed to me. You're going to sell it to me subject to. That's kind of where we're going to go with this. Is that correct? I'm clarifying. Yes, I understand that. So you make sure everybody is understanding. And then always make listening your priority. Because if you're not listening, you're not understanding that you're never going to come to the real crux of the problem. And that takes me to why negotiations fail. There's 10 or 15 reasons why negotiations fails. And one of those reasons is you didn't listen. What you thought was the real motivators weren't. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why negotiations fail. And number 3, okay, probe for personal information. When you negotiate with someone, you got to probe for personal information. Okay, I know it sounds like, well, that's personal. Yeah, but when you're trying to solve someone's problems, they keep stuff tight to the vest, right? They don't let their guard down until they know you, until you've built rapport with them. Okay, so your job is to build rapport. All right, the number one thing you can do is building rapport. So you do that by finding common ground. You talk to them on other things that may interest both of you. So if I love hockey, right? My kids have played hockey since the time they were little. If I walk into a house and I see a hockey stick, man, I'm gravitating right to that. Or if I see anything sports related, I go off that because I'm a sports guy, right? Or if I see anything from a hobby standpoint, my wife's into a bunch of hobbies, or anything that I can, as they say, parlay that into a conversation that's going to connect us in some way. Whether it be a picture of their son or daughter doing something, or their grandchild. Okay, I'm going to be a new grandfather, right? If I walked in and I saw grandma and grandpa sitting on, or the grandchild sitting on grandma and grandpa's knee, I'm going to make a comment on that. I'm going to say, hey, yes, who's this cutie, right? They'll tell me, and usually they light up. Well, I'm going to inject or interject my experience now. Hey, I'm going to be a new grandfather. How is it to be a grandparent? And I'm going to let them, I don't care who it is you're talking to. When you talk to somebody, you want them. I've read so many books and all the greats of the world that make people feel. When you talk to someone, you want that person to walk away feeling like $1,000,000. Okay? If you can do that, and not all of us can do that, and myself included, I can't, sometimes I lose track of that, right? But if you can make a conscious effort to make whoever's in front of you feel like they're the most important thing going on right now, your ability to build rapport is going to be second to none. Hey there. I got a couple people saying hi. If you can put your names on it, I'm happy to say hi back. But I'll check you out later in the comments and say hi to you. But your job in a negotiation, in all negotiations, is to build rapport, find common ground, ask about job, family, you name it, anything. That lady we always use that as an example. We walked into one of her rooms and she had porcelain dolls. It kind of has porcelain face to it. And she'd been collecting these dolls for 40 years. And they were all still in the original boxes. So any of you collectors out there that kind of pay attention to this, what one of those 40-year-old porcelain dolls might be worth in its original box, untouched. It could be worth thousands of dollars, right? So she could have sold 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those and probably paid off her house. Who knows, depending on the value of them. But that wasn't important to her. Again, going back to what's the most important thing, what's the need at the time? The need at the time, she valued those porcelain dolls and getting with her daughter more than anything else. She'd lived in that house for over 30 years. Okay? That house meant nothing to her. What meant something to her was getting down to her granddaughter, getting down to her daughter, and taking her things with her, her child hobby. right? Collecting these porcelain dolls. She said she'd been doing it since she was a little girl, right? So gather, let me make myself a little smaller so you guys can see this. Or I'll just move me up to the corner. Gathering as much information as you can. Good evening, another comment. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much. Again, this is what it shows, unknown, so I'd love to hear your names. But if you go, by the way, if you want me to do that, you can go to my YouTube channel and make comments on the YouTube channel, and it will pop up. I'll see your name like this, like Doc. I could see Doc's name where he said compromise. So I encourage everybody, go check out my YouTube channel. And it is youtube.com/Don DeRosa2. And I'm shamelessly bribing everybody. In fact, I'm going to be doing a giveaway here shortly on one of these shows where I give away probably some kind of Alexa or one of those Alexas, something where I give it away. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'm going to start giving stuff away every week. So make sure you go to my YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up and notification. That way you know when I'm online. And you very well may win Alexa or something, probably valued at $100 or less each week. So we're going to start that here real soon. So if you're interested, please, shameless bribe, go to my YouTube channel and check it out. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a subscribe. All right, back to this. So you want to gather as much information as possible. We call it the 20 questions when we start asking you how much do you owe, what's it worth, so on and so forth. But it's more than that. It's finding out, getting behind the armor. Because when you meet somebody for the first time, they're going to come to the door. They may not come to the door with their arms crossed like this physically, but mentally they're crossed. They've got a guard. They've got a wall in front of them. Your job is to break that wall down. Your job is to get in there and get all warm and fuzzy, and let them feel like you're a real person. And here's the thing. Here's the trick to this. The bottom line. This is the there is no trick, right? The bottom line is be sincere, be empathetic, be sincere. If you can't, it's hard to fake. All right. If you could care less about somebody and you have no empathy for them, you're probably in the wrong business. But that's a very dangerous thing too, I'm going to tell you, because you can't solve everybody's problems. As much as I want to solve everybody's problem, sometimes I have to just say I can't, because the last thing you want to do is take them out of the quicksand and put you in it. So you got to understand your numbers and you got to buy right. We make our money when we buy, we realize it when we sell. So probing for personal information or getting as much information as possible comes in the form of asking open-ended questions like how much do you owe on the property? What's your monthly payment? Tim Winders, welcome. Thank you. When do you want to move or why do you want to move? If you're on the other side, you're asking, what can you afford? Like, I always am surprised when if I go into Craigslist and I see all these ads out there of people selling houses and they say, owner will finance 10% down, $1,100 a month for this property. I just shake my head and go, oh my gosh, that is the absolute worst thing you could put out there. Because you've just boxed yourself in from a negotiation standpoint. You've just told them what your limits are, and there's no way for you to get anywhere, to go anywhere for that. So what I mean by that is, instead of saying 10% down, say low down payment. Well, what does the word low mean? It means something different to everybody, right? Low down payment, low monthly. They will call you and say, what does that mean? And you can answer a question with a question, right? By saying you have to be a kind of a politician. Well, what kind of down payment do you have to work with? And they will typically say, well, what kind do you need? I don't know. We're pretty flexible. What do you have to work with? I never tell them that. And then they say, well, I have $8,000. Well, in my mind, if I needed 10, I will say to them, yeah, that's just a little bit lighter than we wanted. We were really looking for 10 to 12. You can always do that. But if you say, I want 10%, which is, let's say, at $10,000, and they have 12,000 or they have 15,000 or 20,000, they're going to come to you and say, I have 10,000. I have your required down payment. So from a negotiation, don't ever box yourself in. All right, so let's keep going. Hey, Georgette. Number 4, have the guts to ask for more than you expect to get. That is an old trick in negotiating so that you don't do what's called a deadlock. A deadlock is when you only have 1 or 2 items that you need to negotiate, and both parties are steadfast on opposite sides on those 2 items. Okay? If you're just negotiating on price and that's it, you've done and you've made the offer and they've said no, guess what? You're deadlocked. So that's why most negotiations fail, because you don't interject more points of the negotiation. So always ask for more. Like when I first sold my house many years ago, I was a rookie at this. And when I went to sell, they made me an okay offer. It wasn't a lowball offer, but it wasn't what I wanted, right? But inside that offer, they asked for everything in my house. They asked for my washer and dryer. They asked for my drapes. They asked for my furniture. They asked for my damn treadmill, right? In the offer. And I can remember saying, and because I was moving with a company, I really had to look at every offer as if I needed to get it, to take it. Because, when I move, I would move somewhere and my wife and kids would stay where they were and we were apart, and I didn't want that. So anything that made me a positive, made me money, I was going to take it because I was just, I'd rather have my family with me, right? So here we are. I went back and I negotiated all of my stuff back, but then it never occurred to me to negotiate price. Like nowadays, my negotiations is simple right out of the gate. Whatever they offer me, I offer them $1,000 less than my original asking price. So if I was asking $100,000 and they came in at 80, my counter would be $1,000 off. So my counter would be 99,000. Now, some of you get scared to death by that and you go, well, I want to sell this. My holding costs are killing me. I need to sell it. Because most people, what they do is, this is how negotiations mostly works. They come in and offer you 90, for example, and you're asking 100. Well, most people go, well, I'll counter back at 95. Well, what happens? Then they counter back at 92, and then you counter back at 93 or 92.5. And the next thing you know, you've come down 75%, and they've only come up 25%. You want the opposite to be the case. You want to come off a little bit to make it appear like you're flexible. You don't want to be inflexible. You don't want your agent to go, okay, this guy's not flexible. He's greedy. Blah, blah, let's just move on. No, I'll come off my price a little bit just to see how serious they are, and then watch to see where they come. If they really come up, then it means they really like my house. If they just walk away, that means that they didn't really want my house to begin with. Or they had problems financing, which could be a problem down the road anyways. So I'm okay with that. So those are some tips and tricks. Have the guts to ask for more. As I mentioned, you got to start. It's impossible to negotiate higher once you've come in low. Or vice versa, depending on which side you're on, right? It's easy to give something away that you never had. So in the case of my furniture, in the case of my treadmill, it was easy for them to give away and say, yeah, you can have it back. Yeah, you can have it back. Because in my mind, I'm winning by getting my stuff back. And they're like, we're giving him stuff that we didn't even want in the first place. I do it every day with hot tubs, washer and dryers, you name it. Pool tables. I can't tell you how many pool tables I've gotten, how many hot tubs I've gotten just by asking. Because most people, when they move, if they downsize, they're not taking that stuff with them anyways. So they're going to try to sell it, and then they won't get nothing for it. But if you can bundle it and say, look, I'll give you the most I'll tell you what, I'll give you your price. Maybe you could give it to him anyways, but with that price, I want you to include these 3 items: the washer, the dryer, this and that. Now, you may have been prepared to give them that price anyways, but again, you can't make it easy on someone, because when you do that, if you say to somebody, okay, my offer is $1,000, and they say, okay, done, I'll take it. You're going to go, I mean, I have a slide later on, but the first thought going through your head is, oh crap, I could have done better, or what's wrong? Something's wrong, right? Even though they got a good deal and you got rid of it, because they didn't put up any kind of resistance, any kind of negotiating. I don't feel good about that. I feel like something's wrong, or I could have done better, or something. So I leave that negotiation empty. There's a pit in my stomach where I'm a little empty inside. Now, all they had to do was negotiate and haggle a little bit, and I would have walked away there, probably paying more or less depending on the side I'm on, but walking away going, okay, I did my best. So there has to be a certain amount of give or take and a certain amount of negotiations back and forth for people to feel good about that. Okay, so you never say yes to the first offer. All right, so number 5, have the patience to wait for your outcome. Again, time, information, and power are the 3 variables in every negotiation. Time is on your side, so you have the ability to wait. If you've ever heard someone talk to you about buying a car, going to a dealership and buying a car, they tell you, have the patience or the ability to stand up and walk out and watch the salesperson run out after you, because you have something they have. I mean, you want something they have, but they have something, you have something they have or they want, which is money, right? You have the ability to buy their product and they get a commission for that. A lot of times that outweighs your ability to want that car. And that's where the time, information, and power come in, right? So have the patience. So, for example, if somebody doesn't take your offer for the first time, right? If they don't take your offer, don't be afraid to walk away. Say, look, that's the best I can do right now. Let me take me away so you can read that real quick. Whoops. Don't be afraid to walk or say, you know what, let me let you think about it. And a lot of people are afraid to do this because they've been taught that you got to strike while the iron is hot. You got to make sure that you get them while they're in the mood. Yes, but there is also a time and a place where you stay on them or engaged with them, but you've got to have the ability to walk out so that you say, okay, well, my time is as valuable, if not more, than yours. And so, I have the money, I have it today, but I may not have it tomorrow because there's 6 other houses I'm going to look at today. And although you can take your time, and by all means, I don't want to put any pressure on you to make this decision, but understand that when I leave, I'm going to make 6 other offers, and I'm unfortunately don't have all the money in the world. So I really like your home. I think we got along great. So if you're even all interested in my offer, please don't wait too long. Okay? And that's how I leave it. And then I may call them back the next day. Hey, how's it going? Do I lose deals sometimes because I walk away? Yes, but that's my style. My style was not the type A personality where I'm in your face, banging on this thing. Take it. It's now or never. Take it or leave it. You're never going to get this deal again. That is not my style. And one of the things I will tell you in negotiations, you have to understand that what we call the gambits, the techniques, but then you have to fit them in to your personality, your style. You have to feel good about putting those offers out there. Learning the techniques and using them to your advantage all comes down to your style. Okay? And let's see, number 6, introduce creative solutions to meet the underlying needs. And that's where you come in, is once you understand those problems, once you understand all of that, now you can make solutions or make suggestions to those problems and come up with creative solutions. So the lady needed $1,500 by Friday. I don't normally give $1,500 earnest money. So I can create a solution and say, look, I'll send $1,500 down, but I need assurances that you're going to sell me this house. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put a deed in escrow until we can get this title search run and closed. So in case you walk or skip town, you can send that over to the attorney and have them hold on to it. Now, most attorneys will hate you for that, just so you know, because they don't like it when you do that. But it's a way for you to creatively secure that property. Maybe you take an option on the property temporarily that's an exclusive option. Something like that, some creative solution. You could, when we start talking about all the different, so someone asked me on the comments here if I do subject to. That is my number one way to buy houses. And what I have coming up, just so you know, if any of you are interested in my subject to class coming up, I'm going to put it up here and show you where to go to register for it. If you're a member of Atlanta REIA, it's depending on if you're one of our PPG or group coaching students, it's free for you. If it's not, there's several things that I have to offer for anybody interested. We have what's called Property Protege Group. That's where you can kind of go right here. Let me put that up there for you to look at. You can go to this website, ppgcoaching.com, and check it out. We spend an entire year with you. You get 18, 19 different home study courses that you get to keep. We have weekly coaching calls. We have in-person calls where I'm in front of you live every Wednesday. Whether you're in California, wherever, we're streaming live every Wednesday. In fact, last year, I think I missed 3 Wednesdays all year. And that was because of various things. Thanksgiving, I think, was one of them. Christmas was another. And there was a couple others, and maybe 3 or 4 that we missed. Beyond that, we never miss a Wednesday. So there's lots of things. Go check out the PPG coaching. If you're interested in joining us on Wednesday, you can come to the first one for free just by simply going to area.us/PPG online. And that's where you can go. You also have to put in there, in order to get free, there's a code you have to put, and it has to be a coupon code first time. So if you want group coaching or you want to check it out, see if it's for you, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go there, check it out. That is coupon code first time. And let me put this down. But my subject to event that's coming up is also going to be on the 23rd. So let me pull that up and see if I can find that little graphic I have. You would go to this area.us/sub2, and that's going to take you to the page where you sign up. That is an all-day event where we're going to talk to you about how to find them, how to do all the paperwork, how to evaluate the subject to, how to convince the seller to take your offer, how to overcome the objections that the seller may have, how to put properties into a trust, what's the benefit of a trust, and how to maneuver through that so that you become what we call, you have anonymity, you become invisible. So those are all going to be, that's what we're going to talk about on the 23rd, which is, I believe, that Saturday. So you would go to area.us/sub2 and sign up for that. And that is that particular page. I also have, and I don't have the information. I keep asking Muhammad. We're doing a webinar coming up for Atlanta cash buyers. So if you're on Atlanta cash buyers now watching this, we're going to be doing a webinar. I can't remember the date. I think it's the Thursday is the 21st. I think it's the 21st. Let me look at my calendar. It is the 21st. So stay tuned on the Atlanta cash buyers location or Facebook page for more details for that 1 hour, hour and a half webinar on creative deal structuring. It's where we talk about all the different types. All right. So hopefully, folks, you've enjoyed this. If you have, and if you're on my Facebook pages right now that we've been, hop over to my youtube.com/Don DeRosa 2 channel. Hit the subscribe button because I'm really trying to get my 1,000 members. So you're an integral part, and I'm going to shamelessly bribe you here shortly with lots of gifts and shower you with love and affection. But please go subscribe, give me a thumbs up. That really goes a long way to promoting the videos that you like, and that means a lot to me. So if you have any questions, by all means, thank you, Joseph. Joseph put a comment in here. Let's see where to. You put excellent job, so thank you. Well, there it is. Right there. Thank you very much, Joseph. Whoops, let me move that out of the way so people can see your name. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. If you liked it, I'd love to hear any comments you have. Share it because this is a new channel. We're going to be doing this Tuesdays and Thursdays for the foreseeable future. Eventually, as we get out there and kind of get back into normalcy, we may pare this back to a once-a-week show. But right now, I'm having too much fun with it. I love sharing information with you guys. As long as you guys are there and you're willing to listen and absorb the information, I'm willing to give it to you. So next week, we are going to be probably talking a little bit more about negotiations and how to talk to sellers. Thank you, Valerie. She's the sweetest. She said, "You're the best." I really appreciate that. She's the absolute most positive person I've ever met in my life. And this world needs more people like her. Anyways, but we're probably going to talk more about negotiation. And I may have a guest next or this coming Thursday. So I'm going to try to put together a guest on this Thursday to see if somebody can come on and talk about either short sales or money, or what I'm kind of curious about is if the wholesale market, see, for me, buying and selling, I don't do a whole lot of wholesaling, but I'm wondering how the wholesaling market is faring in this lull we're in. So I'm going to try to get a wholesaler on here to talk about what their experience is. Are they seeing an uptick, a downtick, what? So by all means, please stay tuned. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. And I thank you for joining me on another episode of Expert Real Estate Coaching. I look forward to having you here every single week. Thank you very much. God bless. Don't lick anything, and make sure you wash your hands and wear your masks, and we'll see you next time. Happy investing.